Hi guys, it's Amber from Amber Reads Books, and I'm here today to bring you my weekly reads video. This is the video where I tell you what I read last week, what I'm currently reading, and what I hope to read for the coming week. This past week was a pretty good week. I had a couple of weird work days where we got out early one day and then we had a snow delay the next day. This weather here in New England has been a little weird. We really haven't had a ton of snow this year, but we've had storms pretty regularly where we get like a couple of inches, so we have delays or early dismissals, one cancellation so far this year, which is kind of unheard of going into February for us, but it just means we'll get out earlier this year if we don't have a ton of snow days. But anyway, yeah, my week wasn't crazy or anything. I was able to binge watch so much Gilmore Girls this week. It was unbelievable. I'm now in the middle of season 5. I'm just plowing through it, and I know I'm going to be so sad once I'm all done and have been caught up with everything that they've put out already, but I just can't get enough. I can't get enough. And I know I told you guys before that I was watching The Office. My husband and I have been watching it together, and we have one episode left, so I'm kind of sad about that as well, but there's more and more shows to check out on Netflix, so I won't be too sad for too long. But I spent a lot of my week kind of binging that. However, I was still able to finish 3 books, so I'm proud about that. Oh, and today is Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm wearing my Patriots shirt. It's kind of hard to see, and I'm so excited for the game tonight. I was never a huge football fan, but once I met my husband, he was, and then my son played football, and I kind of just blossomed into this football fan. I don't watch every single game of every single team, but I try to really follow the Patriots, and I try to watch them each week. So it's been really fun to learn the game the last few years, and just to have them in the Super Bowl is exciting for my family since we are fans. But anyway, I hope all of you enjoy watching the Super Bowl. I do watch it also just for the commercials and the halftime show, because I was doing that long before I met my husband. So it's just a fun time. I'm making snacks and I'm sure it'll be fun. But anyway, let's get into those books I was talking about. I'm going to start with my lowest rank and work my way up to my highest, as always. So this week, my lowest ranked book was The Chemist by Stephenie Meyer. I rated this 3 stars. This is the February pick for hashtag on the booktube shelf. I will leave all their information down below. I requested this from my library because I'm still on my book buying ban. I am trying not to buy any books whatsoever. So I requested this early, just thinking it might take a while for it to come in. I thought maybe mid-February or something, but it didn't, and came in pretty much right away. So I had to hurry up and read it because our library only does 7-day loans for brand new releases. Brand new, I think in the last 6 months or so. So I had to read it, and I had to read it pretty quickly in order to get it back to the library. I gave this 3 stars. It was enjoyable. It was about this woman who works for a secret government agency. She's kind of on the run from them, and I just don't want to give any more away than that because it is like a spy thriller type novel, and anything I will say would just give away any little twists and turns that there are. So it is a spy thriller novel. There are more elements of romance in this than I thought there were going to be. I am just not a huge romance fan. I think part of my problem with romance, which I'm starting to discover about myself, is I just don't get the romance that is sort of insta-lovey. I don't get that at all. I don't like it. I don't like when people are overly like, oh my gosh, I just met you, and there was a line here like, all the days before have not been anything like they are now. And I mean, the people in this have only known each other a couple of days. So I was just like, I don't know. I can't really. Some romance works for me, but it's more of the realistic romance, or the romance that takes its time and really builds up into a grand romance. So those elements that were in this, just I could have done without. I will say this book is very readable. I was able to fly through it. It is large. It's 518 pages. I thought it was going to take me a lot longer than it did. I read this in 2 days. It really did not take any time at all. But on the flip side, it was also very predictable for me. I just felt like you saw things coming from a mile away. I really have been conflicted about Stephenie Meyer as an author, just to begin with, because I loved Twilight when it first came out. I mean, I was all in the craze, and I really enjoyed it at first, but now as an adult, looking back on it and having heard discussions about it, I can see why I wouldn't want, say, my daughter to read it, and there's just things in there that bug me now. I also read The Host, and at the time thought it was okay. It was definitely readable. I liked it enough that I watched the movie adaptation and everything. So I did like it, and I wanted to really love this book. I wanted to see her kind of step outside her comfort zone a little and to see how she would handle an adult book. And I just was a little disappointed. I mean, I've read spy thriller novels before, and many were much better than this one. I've read romance novels before, and many were much better than this one. So it didn't hit the mark for me, but it wasn't horrible at the same time, if that makes sense. So yeah, 3 stars. I will give you the first line from this book, and that is, today's errand had become routine for the woman who is currently calling herself Chris Taylor. The next book I read this week was Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I am doing this as a buddy reads with Laura from Nargle Catcher. I will leave her channel down below. Her and I have not yet been able to hook up and discuss this because I just finished it yesterday morning. I'm going to email her later today and see when we can discuss it. But so far, these are my thoughts. I think I read this when I was younger because I had it marked on Goodreads. And as I was reading the story, elements of it I did remember. So I'm pretty positive I've read it before. If I did, I was 18 or 19 years old. I was pretty young when I first read it. I couldn't have been much older than that. So I will say, when I started rereading it the second time, I was finding the writing a little easier to read. However, it was not keeping my attention. I don't know what it was. The long descriptive paragraphs just, I could not focus. I loved the writing. I loved reading it. Individually, like sentences, I really loved. Overall, the whole thoughts of paragraphs and chapters I loved, but for some reason my brain just could not focus. So here's what I did. I decided to download it as an audiobook from the library. It is my first audiobook that I have actually listened to in its entirety. I really enjoyed it. I felt it was so much easier for me to follow hearing it spoken than trying to read it myself, just because the language for me kind of tripped me up. And then to be able to hear it and to be able to hear it read in an English accent was just amazing for me. I don't know what it was. It just really resonated with me and really made me able to concentrate on the story and to get the full effect of the story. I will say, a few times while I was listening to it, my mind would start to wander and I'd have to like snap myself to attention and be like, hey, you're listening to an audiobook, you need to pay attention. But overall, I loved having the audiobook, and I think it's actually turned me on to audiobooks. Not that I would use audiobooks all the time or read every single book as an audiobook, because I can definitely read way faster than the audiobook can read it to me. I mean, you can speed it up to like 4 times the speed, but then it's just like, blah, 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 and I can't understand a word that it's saying when I do that. But I will use audiobooks for those times when I can't read. Like I was using it while I was cooking dinner or doing, things around the house. I even had to go outside and shovel one day this week, so I took it out and put it in my pocket and was listening to it as I was shoveling outside. So it was just really fun to be able to experience this as an audiobook. I really, really enjoyed it. For the story aspect though, overall, I really did enjoy it. I mean, this is a story of what I think is more about the sisters than it is about the romance in this book. I enjoyed the language. I enjoyed just so many aspects of it. I will say the only thing I didn't enjoy, and I think that this, from what I've heard, is prevalent in a lot of Jane Austen's books, is the very long descriptions about characters that in the end don't really mean a whole lot to the story. And I kind of did get that here and there, which is why I knocked it down from a 5-star read down to a 4-star read. But I did. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Eleanor. And I really liked Willoughby, but I also liked not liking Willoughby, if that is anything. I I just liked the little twists and turns that it had, and the characters, and like I said, the language was just so wonderful. So I think I will read more Jane Austen in the future. However, I think I will be using audiobooks to help me, because for some reason I just can't physically read it with my eyes. It just does not work for me, but listening to it was a lot of fun. And I'm going to look up movie adaptations of this so I can go ahead and watch those and just get more of a fuller picture, people behind the actions and everything. Because when you do listen to the audiobook, sometimes, you know, some of the voices sound a little similar to each other because it's one person voicing the actors. The characters in the book. So I will definitely be looking for movies of each one as I read them. I probably won't rush to read the next Jane Austen, but it will definitely be something that I look forward to doing in the future. The first line in this book was, this is going to take me a second. The family of Dashwood had been long settled in Sussex. The final book that I read this week was The Female of the Species by Mindy McInnes. This is a YA thriller / a little romance novel. Again, this is a book that had romance in it that I am normally not a fan of romance, but this seemed to work a little better for me. Not that I was fully behind everything in the book, but it did work a little better. This also has warnings for some animal cruelty. The main character works at an animal shelter and obviously deals with situations where animals are not treated very nicely. And it also has warnings for rape. I am not one that likes to read about rape very often. I mean, rape seems to be in a lot of books, and most of the time when it is in the books, there are no repercussions. It is kind of used as a plot device to kind of just shock the reader, and I never really want to read about it, and sometimes I just find myself stumbling upon a book that has it in there, and at times I can read it and I can get past it if the author handles it somewhat properly, and other times I just cannot do it at all, as was the case last week. But this book actually faces rape culture head on, and also talks about like slut shaming, and just really makes you think, and it is made for that. It is made to make you think and to kind of call out our culture and to kind of fight back against it, if you will. So in the end, I really ended up enjoying the book. I think the message of it was a very positive one, and one that I would want my younger self to have read back then. However, this being a YA book, I will say it is very harsh and vulgar with some of the language and scenarios in the book. It may not be suitable for younger YA audiences, you know, like the 12, 13, 14-year-olds. I have a 14-year-old myself, and I just don't know if I would feel comfortable with her reading it right now. Maybe more like, 16, 17, 18, 19, a little older in high school might make more sense. She's still in middle school, just going into high school next year. So I don't know, just to warn you parents out there, whatever you're comfortable with is fine for me. I just don't know if I'd feel comfortable with it, but that's a personal preference. But for me reading it, it was no problem. I mean, I just went ahead and read it and was able to find the message inside of it. There are some classic YA sort of things that go on in it, and there are some like shocking twists and turns that are a little unbelievable at times. So I just knocked it down a star for that. I just couldn't get behind a couple of the things. But overall, I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the message, and I will definitely look for more books by this author. The first sentence in this book was, "This is how I kill someone." So those were all the books that I read this week. As far as what I'm going to be currently reading, I just finished The Chemist this morning, so I have yet to be able to pick up my next book and actually read it. But I plan on reading The Kingdom Keepers by Ridley Pearson. This is a middle grade novel based in Disney World. So I thought it'll be fun to read since I am a huge Disney fan in general, and I love Disney World, and I hope to get back there someday. We've been twice, but I just want to read it. It's been on my wish list for such a long time, and I have a feeling, just kind of looking through a couple of the pages, that it's going to be a very quick, easy read. So I'm sure I won't spend too long with this. As for what I hope to read for the rest of the week, I did pick up one book from the library that came in that I had a hold on, and that is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is book 2 in the Farseer trilogy. I really enjoyed book 1. It was a little slow to begin with, but it really picked up towards the end. I'm eager to continue on with the story. However, with Robin Hobb books, they take me quite a few days to read. So I have this as something that I may start this week. I am not 100% sure. I have a long 4-day weekend, not this weekend coming up, not the weekend, I think it's the 10th or whatever, starting 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that. That weekend is a regular weekend, but the weekend following it, President's Day weekend, I have a 4-day weekend. So I'm thinking I may save this for then, but I really, really want to read it. So it may win out over other books that I might pick up. So this is just a possibility at the moment. So that is the only book that I plan to read sometime in the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Like I said, it may win out, but I decided, since I don't have any other books definitely planned, I'm going to break out my TBR jars. This one is my fiction TBR jar, and this one is my nonfiction. I'm trying to read one nonfiction book a month, so I figured I'm kind of in the mood for one right now. I will definitely pick one out of here and see what I get. And I think I'm going to pick 2 fiction books and just see how it goes, where the week takes me. So let's start with fiction. I'm going to go ahead and reach in here and see what I get. The first one is going to be The Miniaturist. I know what that one is, so I'll grab that in a second. Let me pick my second one. And that is going to be Cutting for Stone. So let me grab those, I'll be right back. So the first one that I had picked out was The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I've heard many things about this book. Some people love it, some people do not. I absolutely am in love with the cover of this book. So I don't know, hopefully I will like it. On the back it says, there's just a little blurb that says, set in 17th century Amsterdam, a city ruled by glittering wealth and oppressive religion, The Miniaturist is a masterful debut steeped in atmosphere and shimmering with mystery in the tradition of Emma Donoghue, Sarah Waters, and Sarah Dunant. Sounds like something I'd be interested in. I definitely want to give it a try. I hope I love it, because books that I don't love, I am just getting rid of. I put them out in my garage and I'm going to unhaul them eventually. I'll probably do a video on here. But books that I love, I get to keep on my shelf. So I hope that I love this one, because I absolutely, like I said, love this cover. So we will see how that one goes. The next book that I had picked was Cutting for Stone by Abraham, I'm going to butcher the last name, Verghese. I am not sure. It says, Marion and Shiva Stone are twin brothers born of a secret union between a beautiful Indian nun and a brash British surgeon. Orphaned by their mother's death and their father's disappearance, bound together by a preternatural connection and shared fascination with medicine, the twins come of age as Ethiopia hovers on the brink of revolution. Sounds very, very interesting. I've had this book on my shelf for quite a long time. I see it everywhere. Every time I go to like a used bookstore or like a used book sale at my library, I always see multiple copies of this, so I assume it had to be popular at some point. I have not heard a lot about it on BookTube. I don't even know what year it came out. It's probably many, because as we all know, I'm not big on getting new releases here. I get mostly used books. So it says it was published in 2009, so it is 7 years old. But it does sound fascinating, so I am definitely very interested to see what I will think of it. So now, let's break out my nonfiction TBR jar and see what this month's pick will be. And it is going to be Warriors Don't Cry. Don't know what that is, but let me go get it and I'll be right back. So I found it on my shelf, and to be honest, this is probably a great pick for the month of February, which is Black History Month. And that book is Warriors Don't Cry by Melba Patio Beals. It is a searing memoir of the battle to integrate Little Rock Central High School. I remember picking this up at a used bookstore, I don't know, a couple of months ago. It was probably back in the summer, and I really had wanted to read it, but as we all know, my nonfiction books tend to just sit on my shelves, which is the whole reason why I made my nonfiction TBR jar, is to propel me to read things. And how great that I picked this book out. I mean, I'm really interested in the topic, and I want to read more about it and get myself a little bit more educated about what really went on back then. So I definitely can't wait to get to this book. So those are all the books that I've read, that I'm currently reading, and that I hope to read for the coming week. I seem to have picked some really great books this week. I can't believe it. So I'm really excited. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great week and happy reading.